Hey everybody, I'm Greg Soul, and this is Why Am I, a podcast where I talk to interesting people and try and trace a path to where they find themselves today. So my guest this go around is Ryan Estrada. If you were an incredibly anxious kid, what would you do to gracefully work your way out of it? Well, Ryan's solution was to move to a different country once a year for a decade, and just to make it a little bit smoother for him, try going to places where they don't speak the language. That seems like a good solution to me anyway. So this charmed life led to one of my favorite things I've heard in a while, and it was, I look forward to when things go wrong. I'm going to try and adopt a little bit of that myself. But at any rate, I hope you enjoy this chat with Ryan. Ryan, thanks for joining me on the Why Am I podcast today.
Thanks for having me. I've been wondering that myself. Why am I Ryan Estrada?
Why are you? Yeah. Well, I mean, nobody asked to be who they are, right? That's kind of the age-old question. I've heard my kids say, "Well, I didn't ask to be here," and it's like, yeah, fair enough. Does that mean I can just get rid of you and nobody will notice? I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it's documented somewhere. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
Let's see. I used to do this. Let's do it again. I'll concoct a scenario. We just happened to be riding on a train together, and you're regaling me with your story about your samosas. And, I tell you a little bit about myself because I love my sound of my own voice. So, of course, I'm talking first. But it's your turn to reciprocate, bud. And so, who are you?
Well, my name is Ryan, and I am a dude that I call myself an author, artist, adventurer. I'm a dude who travels around the world, getting into trouble, and then making comics and other kinds of stories inspired by those. Sometimes they're nonfiction, sometimes they're fiction, but they're all based on incredibly dumb things that I've done in my travels, or amazing people that I've met, or experiences that I've had. And yeah, I make lots of graphic novels that are my own. I've worked on things like Star Trek, Popeye, Garfield, Flash Gordon. But really, I just love telling stories in whatever format that I can, and I travel all over the world doing that.
That's dope. No, I know you were saying that like at an early age you were doing a whole lot of traveling. Are you still traveling that much? Are you still out and about?
Well, now I live in South Korea. My wife and I are kind of settled here a little bit. We've been living in Busan for about 13 years now, but we still try to travel as much as possible. We're going to Australia this summer to do a comic event, and yeah, I don't do as much as I could, but yeah, I like right out of college, I started moving to a new country every year just because I could. Like, I'm a cartoonist. I work the internet. No one that I work for knows or cares where I live, so I might as well travel. And like a lot of people, when I was doing that one country a year thing, a lot of people were like, "Man, this guy must be rich making comics." And I'm like, "No, I can't afford to live in America." Like, I could go to Costa Rica and rent a private beach house with my own private ocean, and the nearest neighbor was like a 30-minute trip away. I could rent that for like $80 a month, but if I came to America, I would be starving in the streets. So, I went to a lot of places. A lot of it was like no research whatsoever, no planning, no money to do anything. Just be like, I feel like moving here now, or like watching a YouTube video and being like, "Oh, that sloth's cute. I should move to Costa Rica. Let's go." And yeah, I did that for a while, but now I'm kind of settled down and building a life and a career here in Busan, South Korea.
It sounds like you have very little intrinsic fear, like, or did you just learn to overcome those sorts of things?
Yeah, well, I mean, like as a kid, I was very anxiety ridden about everything, like worried about things that were going to go wrong. And it was when I traveled that completely changed.
Huh.
And I've told the story a million times, so I'll tell a shortened version of it. But I mentioned being homeless in Japan several times, and the first time, uh, I ended up sleeping on a park bench in the middle of a typhoon with the flu and no money and no food. And I was laying there feeling so incredibly sorry for myself about how this was the worst experience of my life. And then while I'm sleeping in this typhoon, all of a sudden this little black kitten comes up, curls up on my chest, and goes to sleep. And it just became so surreal in that moment, and like something out of a Ghibli movie, that all of a sudden I started laughing and I realized, wait, this is the worst moment of my life and I'm fine. So if this is the worst case scenario, why am I stressing about things going wrong?
Hmm.
And also, ever since then, I've been telling that story constantly in comics, on podcasts, and storytelling shows, on stage shows. And so, like, my currency is stories. So, all of it, ever since that moment, things going wrong has never bothered me. In fact, it's the opposite now. If I take a trip or I do something and everything goes perfectly, I'm like, well, there's no story here. What am I going to talk about? I get really disappointed. So, like, it's just my mind deciding that, like, oh, wait, I can survive this. It's cool that I completely stopped worrying.
That's wild. Like I've never, like later in my life, I've started embracing whatever comes at me. So I used to have like this mentality, like I grew up so full of anxiety and anxious. Like I hated groups of people or being like outside where there's going to be a huge crowd. Like I still remember waking up every day and like feeling like I was going to puke before school, and I had no idea why. It was just like anxiety. Like we didn't have words for it necessarily back then, but the idea that you
It,
look forward to things going wrong is fascinating. But to me, that kind of almost sounds like going not according to plan, right? It
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
necessarily mean wrong, right? Like you don't look forward to breaking your leg, but if your plans fall through and you end up on some crazy adventure, like that's the thing you're shooting for. That seems awesome.
yeah. I mean, like, I've been lucky that all of my things going horribly wrong have been horribly wrong in a funny way. Like, there's a lot of almosts in my stories. Like, I was almost eaten by lions in the Masai Mara at one point. I almost died many, many times being like sucked out into riptides in the middle of that private ocean that I mentioned, where the nearest person was 30 minutes away and nobody knew I was out there. I got thrown from a moving train by the police, sleeping on park benches and typhoons, like a lot of things that like could have gone horribly wrong, but just went wrong in funny ways that make me sound dumb in ways that are funny. But I mean, it's funny going from that to that from like, I remember like as a, that same trip that I was talking about, uh in to going to Hollywood. Like I remember being with a group of people and they're all chatting and I'm just like I didn't know how to join in the conversation. Like what if I say something stupid? Like I don't know how to jump in. And I remember that one point like one of the we were there with like some teachers from our school and one of them was just like what Ryan, you got to join this conversation, man. Well, like what are you doing? Like say something. And I didn't know what to say. And he's like as the conversation goes, just jump in and add things. And then the next thing he said was, anyway, there was one time my dad punched me in the face and knocked me down the stairs. And I'm like, how am I going to respond to that? I don't want to, like, I'm not going to jump in and comment on your childhood abuse. And I just
God,
got really
you
scared.
could say,
Like,
"Man,
didn't
I
say
wish it
anything
was
the rest
me
of the
that
night.
punched you down the stairs." Oh,
Yeah. But, but like from going from that to like afraid to even speak to now, like, not only do I have these experiences, but I go on stage and tell them, uh, tell stories. And that was another thing where like realizing it wasn't that bad. Like I would have never imagined going on stage. And then one day I was invited and I went up and I did a terrible job and bombed. And I realized like, oh, nobody cares that I did a bad job. So if I get better, they'll care even less. And so now I do that. It's just kind of like I've learned to just not worry about it. Things can go wrong. It's fine.
yeah, you're gonna survive. At the end of the day, you'll be okay. You'll be all right, and you'll move forward. Man, I'm hearing a lot of parallels between myself and you. There was I don't know why, but I always felt like I had to like progress and like move myself into these extremely uncomfortable places. So I used to go to these networking conferences, and after like the third year, I was like, "Hey, I'm going to speak at one of these." And I got up there, and I was like full on flop sweat. Like I was just my shirt was drenched. I was so nervous. I know I sounded like a crazy person. I was talking too fast. It was horrible, horrible. And then I did it the next year, and it was less horrible. I'm not saying it was good, brother,
Mm-hmm.
but it was, and so just progressively got better and better. And now I seek out opportunities to speak in front of people, to do this thing. Like it feels like performing is like such a natural extension of myself now. You know what? I've been kind of like musing over it. And I think those things were so unavailable to me for so long that talking in front of a crowd of people and like moving the crowd one way or the next and then making them laugh and then making them contemplative, like that feels like a freaking magic trick to me. And I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely love it.
Yeah. And yeah, I've like told stories at all kinds of events like that, and it's interesting like seeing how much you can control the audience because like I'll tell the same story at like three different events and get completely different reactions, and I'll realize that like I'll tell a story at say like a spoken word open mic where people are doing like poetry about childhood trauma and things, and I go up and tell a story that's slightly funny, and in contra, people are falling out of their chairs laughing. I'm like, oh, this is a really funny story. I should go tell this at a comedy open mic. And I tell it at a comedy open mic, and it's crickets. Everybody's like, are you going to tell a joke? Or, and I realize like, not only is it context, but also I realize slight differences in the way I tell a story can change everything. Because like, if I'm telling a a funny moment, what makes it funny is that you expect things are going to happen one way, but something different happens. So if I tell the story and I say, you know, uh, and I'm doing the telling the circumstances, and all of a sudden I tell you what happened, it's not funny. But if I tell you circumstances and I wait 1 second, during that 1 second, your mind is imagining what's going to happen. And then when I say what happened, then people laugh. So it's like, and it's, if you don't pause that 1 second, it's not, you didn't do something wrong. You're just going to get a different reaction. And realizing that is kind of important. And then I kind of, as a cartoonist, I bring that back to comics. And I'm like, how do I translate to a comic? Like, do I do the setup at the end of a page? And so that as people are physically turning the page, their mind is thinking about what's going to happen next. Whereas if I put them both on the same page, it would be just like blurting out the story with bad timing. So yeah, it's really fascinating. And since I learned so much from that, I do a workshop as I travel and like do school visits as an author. I This workshop has worked out so well that now sometimes when I do school visits, I forget to promote my own books because I do this instead. But I do a workshop. I call it the how to learn to be a fearless storyteller. And I go to like kids that have stage fright, and I have a bad storytelling contest where I ask them, like, who has stage fright? They raise their hands and like, what are you afraid of happening? And we write down all the mistakes that they're afraid of making. And I say, we're going to have a contest where you're going to see how many of these mistakes you can make in 1 minute. And we, the audience, are going to judge you and call out those mistakes you're making. And I'll check them as people call them out. And they get so excited they're allowed to make mistakes that they start hamming it up and like making mistakes and like acting out. Like some of them just start making new mistakes and like tripping over chairs and stuff. And all of a sudden they're like I've had so many kids like cry after this experience because they're like, my whole life I've been so afraid of making a mistake, and now I did it and people judged me and I'm fine. And like I had one experience where like I did this with like a first grade class, and there's this one girl that did that first activity and then just was a complete ham, and like every single activity I did, she didn't even raise her hand. She just jumped up on stage and started doing it. And afterward I went to the teacher and I'm like, man, that kid was a ham, huh? And she's like, uh I have never heard that child speak. I have been her teacher all year. We have had meetings with her parents, and she has never spoken aloud in class. How did you do that?
That's wild.
It's not like that's all people need is the chance to make a mistake and see that they're fine.
Yeah. Have somebody stand up and give them permission to do it. Not only give them, but encourage them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's fascinating. Yeah, that's interesting. Like you're moving so many gears inside my brain. I've never thought about it in that respect, to just invite people to make mistakes. But it's like exactly what you're talking about, like how you started learning comedic timing, right? All of that comes through reps, right? Maybe somebody can tell you about it, but you have to get practice. You have to get up there and do it to develop that timing, that sense, right? You have to it's like muscle memory. It's like doing anything over and over. You start developing a rhythm to it. And you have to get up and do it. And the first step could be having somebody invite you up. Have you ever done this with adults as well, or is it mostly just kids?
Yeah. I've done it for all ages. I've done it from kindergartners to like elderly people. It works for everybody. And yeah, with things like that, you mentioned like someone can teach you comedic timing. They really can't, because with any creative field, everyone is different. Like if I told a joke and you told a joke, it would be completely different. We have different rhythms, we have different voices, we have different ways that we speak. And like some people it works like you have comedians that tell stories like really, really slowly. You have comedians that like speed through the jokes like waving wildly, and they're going to have to treat things very differently. And the only way you can learn what makes your like rhythms not just funny, whether you whatever reaction you want people to have, it's through telling the story more than once to different people and seeing what happens. And like, not it's not when I do this, I'm not like consciously like, okay, last time I waited 8 milliseconds, this time I'm going to go for 14. It's like I just tell a story and I'm like, whoa, why'd they react that way? um and then I try and figure out why. Because you're naturally going to do things differently. And like there've been moments on stage where like everything has changed because like I mentioned earlier that I was thrown from a moving train by the police, and that was a story that I told many, many times, and I never got a reaction that like people were just like, "Oh, all right, great, good job, guy." And I'm like, why are they reacting like that? And as I was telling it on stage one day, all of a sudden, halfway through the story, I'm like, oh, I'm the bad guy of the story. That's why they're reacting like that, because they realize that and I don't. So if I like on stage, I started suddenly telling it the exact same story, but in a way that acknowledges that I was the bad guy. That all of a sudden they're laughing and they're laughing with me, they're laughing at me, they're like going along with the story because I called out the elephant in the room.
Yeah, for sure. I dig it. Do you feel like kids take to that more readily than adults do? Because I was just thinking, like, once you get some miles under you and you're kind of set in your ways, it seems like it would be harder to kind of tease that out of adults. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've had like the first time I did this workshop was for college students. And I just kind of made it up on the spot because I was hired to do a like summer work public speaking workshop for these kids, and they were afraid to say here when I called their name for attendance.
Bruh.
And so I made this up and just to like get them to speak, and they all turned into the biggest hams in the world. And it worked with that. And then like I mostly do it with kids because I write graphic novels, schools invite me, libraries invite me. But I have done it for adults and it's worked very well. There have been other times that I've done it and I'll just be like, this activity, okay, who wants to volunteer? They're like, no, I'm not gonna do that. And I'm like, what about you? He's like, nah, nah, I'm not gonna do this. This isn't really what I had in mind when I signed up for this workshop. I'm like, well, what does anybody want to do it? No, we're good. Move on to the next step. And I'm like, well, that's interactive too. They're like, all right, we can be done then. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Mm. You know, I'm picturing this in my head with you like moving around and doing all these things and just really just being out in the world. And it makes me wonder, does anywhere really feel like home to you? And if like where, what does it take for a place to feel like home for somebody who moves around that much?
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many places that, like, one of the things that made me want to travel is that the first place I moved to was Korea. And I went into this, like, never having lived on my own before, like, not knowing anything about Korea, and, like, again, terrified things were going to go
Yeah.
wrong before that
You don't
Japan
speak the
thing.
language. Yeah. Any of that
Yep.
stuff.
Yeah. And 1 year later, I'm leaving, and I have this going away party with, like, dozens of people that feel like family, and we're like
Hmm.
crying and hugging. And I'm like, wait, I I lived in America for like 20 some years and didn't have any friends. How did I do this? Wait. And I'm like and so like I kind of it's about building relationships and building like connection, and that's when I was moving to a new country every year, that's kind of what I was chasing, is like, let's build a new community, let's meet new people, and that's what made me love it. And then eventually, if you do that every year for a decade, like basically for 10 years, I was in a new country every year, and a lot of other countries in between, but I was like living in a country every year. And eventually it's like it became like, oh, we got to start from scratch again. I'm a loser with no friends again. I have to awkwardly like try and make friends, and that gets harder the older you get.
Mm.
And then eventually it's just like I gotta stop. I can't like go back to ground zero every single time. So yeah, it's really places that you've built a community, and and that can change too, because like in Korea was the first place I really had uh felt like, I mean, obviously, Michigan is home. I have family there. That's always going to be the case. But then like Korea became another hometown, and then but because a lot of my friends were like foreigners living in Korea, they come for 1 year and they leave, or they come for a few years and they leave. And so like eventually, I remember like one day after like pandemic stuff happened and like events started happening again, I'm like, oh man, I'm so excited to start going to like storytelling events and art events and see my friends again. And I'm like, I don't know any of these nerds. Wait, oh no, he left. Oh no, she went back home. Yeah, she moved to another. I'm like, oh crap, everyone I know left.
Hmm.
I'm starting from scratch again. I just forgot. I didn't realize because we've been quarantining. Um, but I mean, I still have a lot of people here. It's just like certain groups have kind of disappeared. But yeah, it's really friendships and community that make a place home.
Yeah, my wife one time told me that home isn't a place; it's a person.
Mm.
And I like to amend that by saying home isn't necessarily a place; it's people. It's who you choose to bring into your life that really makes something feel comfortable and safe.
Mm.
But I know there is something of a rhythm for me. Like whenever I move into a new place, and there was a time where we were moving a ton, but man, it usually takes about, I don't know, 8 months to a year before a place like I feel comfortable, like the car drives itself to this new house, and it
Mm.
just my brain kind of goes on autopilot when I get there. So I don't know, it takes me a really long time. But it sounds like you have the cheat code to you never settle in one place too long, so you find that sense of home kind of inside yourself, I suppose.
Yeah, like I said, like I said, I've been settled here in Busan for like 13 years now, so I don't know that I could do that again. I mean, no, like the last time in Costa Rica, no, Panama was like the last place that I lived for an extended period of time with my now wife. Was there with me, and it was just like at that point it was just like I felt like such a pathetic dork, like trying to make friends with local artists, and it was clear they were like, who is this guy, like why is he coming on way too strong? And I'm like, I need friends, please. And it did not work, and I'm like, I can't do this forever. Like we're getting into like at that point, like starting my 30s, like it's not that easy to like go out and make a new group of friends every year. um but yeah, I mean, and then like before that, when I was living in Costa Rica, it was like I lived so deep in the jungle that it was a 12-hour trip to go like buy milk. And we were so remote in Costa Rica that we actually had to go to Panama to do our shopping. In this literally jungle, like monkeys breaking in to our house to steal our bananas, like that deep in the jungle. And yeah, like there were like if we rode our bike like an hour down this dirt road, there were like places we could go, like join a yoga class just to interact with people, or like meditation class. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it can be very hard to build community, but I mean, it's possible. Just I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing it once a year for extended periods.
Mm. I've thought about, like, I've mused over the idea of here in the States moving to a new, like maybe a new city, new state once every
Mhm.
year. Like I could see myself doing that here, but it seems like that's probably easier to do if you're in the US versus like in a completely different country. I guess in a different country, especially if you don't speak the language, it's got to be so much more difficult, right?
Um, Yeah, I mean, I never had a problem like adapting to a new country. Like I've always been excited about like everything is new. Like I a lot of the like building communities just because I was so excited to try new things that I would go to a lot of new places and talk to a lot of new people. Whereas if you're living in one place, or like you're moving someplace very similar to where you are, it's not
Mm.
like you're going to be like exploring that much. So it's harder to meet new people. But when you're like um you know, jumping into new communities and joining clubs and things, like you're gonna bump into people that, you can communicate with, that have similar interests or are curious about but your culture and your interests, and you can build community. And I think like being completely out of your element is more helpful than harmful in that.
Yeah. So you said you've been in Busan for over a decade now. Like, what was the impetus to stay there? Like, what convinced you to finally pick that place as the place to be?
Well, I mean, I've always loved Korea. That's like the first place I built a community. My wife Kim Hyun Suk is Korean, and she was traveling with me a bit through like Central and South America, and then she said like before we keep traveling, let's go back to Korea for a bit. And so I think we were planning to go there for like 1 year and then go traveling again. And then she was working, she wasn't ready to leave yet. And then we adopted an elderly cat that someone like needed someone to take care of this elderly cat. Um, and I'm like, well, we're gonna be here for like at least a year, so like this this cat, we'll give it a good final year of its life. And then this cat lived for 10 more years. And so we're like, I was always joking, like I pet my cat and like, as long as you speak sweetly, the cat thinks you're being nice. I'm like, we're all waiting for you to die so we can leave. When are you gonna die? I did not want my cat to die. I love my cat very much, but it was just fun to tease her. And then eventually, like after the cat was gone, we're just like, yeah, I think we're just settled here now. We're just kind of like everything's good. We got good lives. There's really no reason to go like throw ourselves into a like situation for a year that we don't know what we're getting to. Like we can still travel, but we don't need to move to a new country every year
Gotcha.
just because it seems like the thing to do.
So your wife's very much a traveler as well. I'm assuming you guys met on the road somewhere then.
Yeah, we met when I first moved to Korea. And
Oh,
she,
the very first round. All right. So a
yeah.
long time ago.
And I mean, we were just friends for like, well over a decade before anything else happened. But like, um, we, yeah, and she had never really done a lot of traveling like that. And it was kind of like, I took her on that big Central and South America trip. And, yeah, like nowadays she's much more like, if I want to go somewhere, she's like, "Oh, it's a long plane ride. I'm not going to plane that long." Or, "Oh, that's too long on the bus." Like um, she really wanted to do more traveling early on, but now the amount of traveling she wants to do is getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah. Yeah. Understandable. I guess as you build more of a life in a single place, it gets a little
Mm.
bit stickier, huh? It's a little bit harder to kind of break loose.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, we had some great times traveling, but she like really, uh, like that. We when we went across Central and South America, we were doing it like the rule was no planes. We are doing it all land transportation, like buses and cars and things, and like especially like some of those South American like mountains, like you're taking a bus like for 10 hours, it's going up and down mountains, and she was not handling it well getting car. And she's like, we don't do this in Korea. I'm like, yeah, in Korea you blow holes in the mountains and drive through them. They don't do that here. um and yeah, she was sick for a lot of the time, and I you know getting her into some of the same kinds of trouble that I got into. Wasn't as extreme. Like I didn't get her nearly eaten by lions, but we did get stuck in a coca war at one point where we we got stranded in the middle of nowhere, and all the buses were shut down because the president had like declared war on coca farms, and they'd come out with like tanks, and the farmers were teamed up with
Bro.
the cocaine manufacturers, and they were like setting fires and shooting at each other. And then we got abandoned on the side of the road because our driver was afraid to go any further and made us walk through it. um that was wild, but we survived it. And I think now she's just like, if we plan a trip now, let's like book a hotel, look at reviews, let's plan things in advance. I'm like, I don't like planning things in advance. I like getting in trouble. She's like, I don't. Let's just have a chill time. I'm
Yeah.
not a chill time kind of guy. She is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like she's slowly winning you over, or you're surrendering, one or the other.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to get more adventure in.
Yeah. Yeah. Until the day you die, man. That's
Mm.
There's one way to go. Yeah, for sure. I dig it, man. I'm very. It's crazy. Like when I was younger, I was much more risk averse. It sounds like you started out similar to me, and then somehow rewired your brain immediately. I didn't do that, and I am slowly opening up and becoming more and more adventurous. And but it seems like all these things around me, like, kind of are anchoring me in place, whether I want to move or not. And so it's a little bit harder to kind of shake that stuff loose.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very lucky, like, again, that all of my horrible experiences have been funny. So, I've never had to reconsider this, but like my brain is broken. Like I have zero fear about getting into circumstances that one day it's going to kill me. And I've even said, I've posted publicly, if I die in a funny way, my last thought will probably be like, oh crap, how am I going to tell this story? It's funny. So do not be afraid to laugh at me. It's not too soon. I will die hoping that people find it as funny as I
Oh
do.
my god, dude! Your cat's just gonna be sitting there like, man, been waiting for you to die so I could finally get free. No, that's
Yeah,
cool. I was looking at your pedigree, like your body of work. You have produced a lot of stuff, and like you said, you worked on like some Popeye stuff and some Garfield stuff. I'm sure that's the kind of thing that a lot of people would say, man, this is like a huge milestone for me. But I also saw that you did some stuff with the Schulz Museum, like the Charles Schulz, and it's like that's pretty wild, dude. Like is there anywhere you haven't been? Is there like any accomplishment you haven't achieved or mountain you haven't climbed as far as like artistry goes?
yeah, I've been incredibly happy. Like I because I like I do not fear like all the things have happened just because like I go for them. Like and I get rejected hundreds and thousands of times, but I like again my brain has been rewired to the point that I'm like, cool, time to try again. Like, and I just keep going, and then things like start working out. Like I've gotten to do a lot of amazing things. Like that Garfield thing is like, um, when I was a kid, I was obsessed with Garfield. Like a whole room full of Garfield merch, and like my first published comic when I was 16 years old was about an orange cat who's too lazy to chase mice because I had no life experience other than reading Garfield and being like, I'm gonna make one of these one day. But like now that I have life experiences, I have things to write about. But then like I got invited to write real Garfield comics, and I'm like, I young me is like childhood Ryan would find a way to travel the future, murder me if I didn't do this. And I was very excited to like go back to what like the beginning and write some Garfield. But yeah, and Charles Schultz Museum, again, I just like emailed them and said, hey, I'm gonna be nearby. Can I come do a workshop? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. So I did a like drawing day, and uh all the guests got to come, and like the kids would like we would collaborate on a little comic, and yeah, I just a lot of cool things happen because I've been spoiled my whole life in that, you know, I try things, nothing goes wrong. And even as a kid, like when I was a 6 year old trying to pitch my comics to newspapers, no adult in my life said, that's dumb, you're six, you can't do that. They're like, oh yeah, let me help you. Like librarians helped me research how to put together a syndicate submission packet. My parents helped me mail it. Teachers would ask me like, "Oh, have you heard back from this newspaper yet?" Like because no one ever told me that that I need to worry about rejection. I never have.
That's dope. That's dope. I've talked to people before, or I at least two people, and kind of the core of what they said that like pushed them so far is they said, it's not that I thought I could accomplish these things, it's that I never thought I couldn't. So I was like, oh, let's just do it. I bet you I could make that happen. You just like you keep doing that over and over. And like, yeah, you saying you're just asking for stuff. Like, hey, I'll just ask. I asked the Schultz Museum, like, could I do this? And they said yes. It's like there's something inside my body that for so much of my life has like stopped me. There's like this instant, I don't know, like anxiety about like asking somebody for something. And it sounds like you're just very much on the, because what's funny is anytime anybody asks me for anything, my almost immediate answer is like, yeah, sure. It's not a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying like I'm afraid because it always works out. Like for like my ratio is probably like I pitch 100 things, one thing happens. But I enjoy the process of pitching. I like coming up with ideas. I like pitching why it would be a good idea, and whether they say yes or no, I enjoyed writing that. And so for a long time, it was I pitch 100 things and one thing happens. And then the book that really hit for me, like for decades, I made so many full graphic novels that I posted online for free because nobody would publish them. Nobody read them afterward. And then I made a book with my wife called Banned Book Club. That's her true story of being hunted down by the cops for smuggling illegal books on the nose of a dictator. Um, and that book for some reason just hit really big, and it's like even to this day it's still a steady seller. It's taught in schools, universities all over the world. Like almost every library I've ever been to has it, and that did really well. And then all of a sudden I'm still pitching 100 things a month, but now instead of one coming back, now it's like 10. And I'm like, I don't know how long it's going to last, so I'll just take them. And so like I've been so busy since then because I'm like you know I don't know how long it's gonna last. Let's just take all these opportunities. And I'm still like being rejected like 80 times a month, but I'm gonna keep doing my 100 pitches
I know,
and
dude.
see
Well, I
what
mean,
happens.
your ratio, the way it is now, it sounds like it's like you're fist pumping all the time, dude. Like I would be so
Yeah,
stoked about
yeah.
like
But I
getting
mean,
that kind of turnaround.
so many people like they get rejected once and like, oh, I guess this career isn't for me, and they quit. I'm like,
Hmm.
that's that's like by 8 a.m. for me. I get one rejection. Come on, man. This is like it's not like one rejection in your life. Like that's like before breakfast, you should have at least three.
Yeah, I like to say that most of my career has been defined through failure. So I will
Yeah.
try something and I will fail and fail and fail and it'll finally work. And then, okay, good. Now I'll move on to something else and I'll fail at that a whole bunch till it finally works. And so it's just, I've gotten so accustomed to failure that it's part of the process. Like when I would work, we would do these late night change windows and they were very stressful. And if for some reason it all worked, I would be so freaked out. I'd be so paranoid. Like, what happened? Because like something always goes wrong, and then you react to it. You fix it really fast, and you're good. So when everything was quiet and it actually functioned correctly, totally freaked me out. So, yeah, I think you just have to get accustomed to failing, and like you said, realizing you're going to be okay. You know, whether you're
Yeah.
sleeping on a park bench or I don't know, having somebody say no, I'm not interested in this thing. You just got to keep pushing, huh?
Yeah, failure is like my favorite thing. Like I started an autobiographical comic about like my entire life, and it's called Ryan Made Mistakes because the mistakes are the important part. And I never finished that comic because that too was a failure, but that's great. It's like everything good in my life has come from a failure. Like the reason I got my agent is because of a failed project, and that like she helped me like uh step up the game. Like I've been making comics for decades. I was like, I don't need an agent, and then like I got one, and I'm like, she sent me the first offer, and I'm like, oh, there's too many zeros here. It's a typo. She's like, no, it's not. Like you can get paid doing this crap. Like nobody told me that, but I wouldn't have had that if I hadn't failed on a previous project, and that project came from another failure. Um, One of my favorite stories is of the time I threw $1 million in the trash can. Um, I was in high school, and it was 1998, I believe, when the Matthew Broderick Godzilla movie came out. And Taco Bell had a contest that if you collected all the letters in Godzilla, you won $1 million. And I didn't really go to Taco Bell, but I went with a friend of mine for lunch. And oh, there's game pieces on here. My friend won a free taco, and I got a Z. And I got so mad that I didn't win a free taco, I threw the Z in the trash. But then we started going regularly, and I started playing the game, and I got a G, I got an O, I got a D, I got an I got two L's, and I got an A, and I'm like, oh crap, I had the Z, and so all of a sudden, like, I gotta get another Z, and I started going to Taco Bell like 3 times a day for every meal, and like ordering another drink, and like we get free refills, right? I'm like, I don't care, give me another drink. It's another A. And like eating so many gorditas, I spent half another time where I spent, days and days in the bathroom because I ate so many gorditas. And then finally I called 1-800 Taco Bell, and I'm like, look, man, I'm dying here. I'm trying to get another Z. How many are there? Like, what's the rate? What are my chances? Is there like, should I be going for gorditas? Should I be going for drinks? Like, what's my best bet to get another Z? And they're like, oh, there's only one Z.
No kidding.
So I had thrown away I had literally thrown away $1 million. And for a long time, that was the story of like failure. Like that was the bad story. And now I look at that story and I'm like, if I had won $1 million when I was 17, I, first of all, I probably would have become an a-hole because like if you're a 17-year-old, $1 million, like it's just, you're not going to get anything good out of it. And like, you're just going to become an a-hole. But I never would have gone to the college I went to. I never would have been so broke after college. I had to move to Korea to teach English. I never would have met my wife. I never would have made the books I made. I never would have had the travels I made. My life would be completely different. And the life I have is worth far more than $1 million. Uh, and so that failure was one of the best things that ever happened to me. And that goes like, I tell that story as a metaphor for like a lot of stories that I can't tell because of NDAs and things like that were horrible failures. But like, that's an example of like everything in my life has come out of the situation like that nothing that came after would have happened if that failure hadn't been there.
I dig it. I dig it. I think about that myself sometimes. It's I like who I am, and I'm only me because of all the stuff that's happened in the past, right? So I genuinely wouldn't change anything. It's like, oh, when you were at that age, if you had, because I had thought like somebody was like, hey man, we should buy a bunch of Bitcoin, like right as it was first getting released. And I was, I thought about it for a minute. I was like, no, this is dumb. But I could have spent $5,000 on that, and then I could be retired right now, because a friend of mine bought a whole bunch of it, and then just, obviously he sold way too early, like I think most people did. So, it is what it is. But yeah, like I genuinely wouldn't go back and change that because I like who I am, and
Yeah.
I like who I am right now in this moment. And I wouldn't,
Yeah.
I can't imagine it any other way.
Yeah.
So I see
And I
that
think
banned book club over your left shoulder. Has it actually been banned anywhere? Just out of curiosity.
yeah, it has been when we wrote Band Book Club, it was very much like I just learned a cool thing about my wife, and I'm like, I made a book about it. I thought it was an interesting bit of history. It doesn't People won't really relate to it. We started in 2017, and by the time the book came out, there was a huge wave of book banning in America, and then our book has been banned in 4 U.S. states at this point.
Oh,
I think
congratulations.
6 different cities. Uh, yeah, it's become a frequent target of the book banners, um, all over the place. Yeah, it's America's a hot mess right now. But yeah, they and I have actually become pen pals with every person who's ever gotten our book banned. And ask them like, hey, do you have any questions about our book? Any concerns? Like, oh, every single time, like, oh, I haven't read it. So, yeah.
Fascinating. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Why would you though? Yeah.
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 Why not? Yeah, I mean it's so yeah, my book club has been banned, my book Occulted has been banned. Both of them are about how book banning is a tool of control for fascists or cult leaders. And some of the people talking about getting my books banned are quoting things that are said in my book by dictators or cult leaders, but don't realize it because they haven't read it.
That's wild. That's wild. So you kind of got that you got that got 'em moment, and they don't even realize it. What is the perception? So living in Korea, what's the perception of the U.S. right now? Like of somebody looking from the outside, kind of in at us. What does the rest of Korea think about us?
Yeah, like this needs some context after, but a lot of the reporting has been calling like Minneapolis America's Gwangju. Gwangju is the thing we talked about in our book, which is like this massacre happened in the city where the dictator was kind of struggling a little bit. People weren't like bowing to him the way they used to, and so he decided he needed to create a situation that only he could protect people from. So he just declared that this one city was full of North Korean spies, and like walled off the city, sent in a bunch of soldiers to just start massacring protesters.
Wild.
And like it was basically like there was a short list of like cities he could do this with, and he decided on Gwangju because one of his political rivals was from there, and he wanted to make him look bad. But it was really just like a political show to like make these people look like villains and make himself look like the hero who's stopping them and just murdering innocent people. And the Korean news is like that's what's happening right now in America. Uh, and that the attitude is like I don't understand how the news and media in America is treating anything like it's anywhere near normal. They're just like, yeah, this is what we fought decades to get rid of. It's back now in America. Uh, don't go there. Like my wife and I were supposed to have we're supposed to spend most of this year in America. We had this whole book tour planned. We were invited as guests to a bunch of festivals. We had like libraries we were going to, comics conventions we were headlining, and like we're just like, yeah, now is not the time to bring my banned book writing foreign born wife into a cross country trip in America. Um, I yeah,
Hmm.
I've gone into a lot of situations unprepared, but that's when I'm in danger. I'm not bringing my wife into that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird time. So I live down in Texas, a very red state, and I have some very liberal friends, and I've had more than one of them pick up and move to a different state. And it kind of, I don't know, it's like it's good in one respect because they're moving to some place to help to make them happier, right? And I feel like we're here on this planet to be happy, right? Your deity of choice didn't put you here to be miserable. So like they're moving towards happiness. But also, um, I think you need a lot of voices to make a place rich and whole and good, and all those differing opinions are leaving. And so it's tough, It's like you're just leaving me here by myself, with only one set of voices for me to hear. It's like I feel like we need more representation. We need more people doing the kind of stuff you're doing, moving around. But I also totally understand the other side of the coin. Like if you feel like you're not safe anymore, then you gotta do what's right for you. It makes me it honestly makes me feel exhausted and sad. And I try and avoid it as much as possible. But I don't talk to too many people from other countries these days. I have a good handful of friends, like one in Slovakia, Latvia, some in the UK, some in Australia. And my Australian friend was coming over here one time, and he was asking me if he needed to worry about getting shot. And I was like, dude, what? It's just the perception of outsiders. I see why it looks that way, and when you actually live here, and you see this stuff happening to your neighbors, man, it doesn't feel good. And it's beyond me to understand how we got to this place. But that's an interesting parallel you draw in your book, and I'm adding that to my list. The band book club. I'm gonna give it a read.
Yeah, Texas is one of the places that we were planning to travel because that's like the one of the most recent places our book was banned. I've tried to fly out every time our book was banned. I've tried to fly out and like speak at the same city council or library board meetings where
No
our book was
way.
banned to kind of support the librarians that are fighting, like risking their safety and their careers to protect our book. Um, and I've done it in Florida, I've done it in Kentucky, and I was supposed to go do it in Texas, but this trip got canceled. So I will make it one day, but I'm not gonna bring my wife to it. Uh, Now my last name is Estrada. I still might have problems with the same people she would have a problem with, despite being a citizen. But I'll take the risks for myself. I'm not going to throw her into it. But yeah, it's been wild doing all these trips and talking to people like that. Because what like when I went to Kentucky to speak out after my book was banned, and this time like nobody knew I was coming. I didn't know how to contact anyone. I just flew in from Korea and I show up at the city council meeting and I didn't know that like they were voting on police salaries that day. So the entire police force for the county was like in the audience in uniform and they all have the sternest faces ever and they're talking about their livelihoods. And then they ask for public comment and they're all like passionately talking about their careers. And I get up and I'm like, hi, I flew from Korea to say books are cool and librarians are cool and you should support your library. And they are all just like stern faced. And I'm like, they are going to beat me up in the parking lot after I got to run. Somebody's going to break my tail light. And as soon as they like bang the gavel, I'm out the door, and all of a sudden behind me, I hear, "Son, stop!" And I turn around, it's the chief of police, and he like saunters over to me, and I'm like, "Oh no, oh no, oh no!" And he's like, "Now you listen. Don't tell anybody else, but I'm on your side. Like, I think these book banners are weirdos. Like, I can't talk about that around here because people, they talk, but like, man, I'm on your side." And I'm like, "Okay, thank you." And I start walking, and another cop comes up to me, and he's like, "Don't tell anybody, but I think these guys are nuts. I'm with you. Thank you for coming." And then one by one, every single person in the room, all the police, all the firefighters, all the citizens, all the politicians, all came up to me to say, secretly, I'm the one in the room that's on your side. And I'm like, if
Huh.
you all would just communicate,
Yeah.
the only people who want to ban the books are two people who drove in from Ohio because they're paid by political groups to do it. Nobody wants this. Calm down. Like, just talk.
Yeah. Yeah. Express your opinion. Don't be afraid of the
Yeah.
backlash. It's but I've learned that such part of human nature is that we want to be accepted into our tribe, and anything that we fear might get us ousted from said tribes. Like, you keep that close and you keep it quiet, especially in certain states, right? It's like, it's known that you toe the line or whatever. And it's so funny that they're all quietly in the same boat, and they don't realize that they're all sitting right next to each other. They just won't pipe up.
Yeah, and that's why, like, when I go to these places, like, I don't know what's going to happen, but like, it just being one person to like say something hopefully encourages other people to say something. Like, I, when I went to Kentucky, one of the things I said in my speech was I had researched who the book banners were. Again, they drove in from Ohio and what they had banned. And the book right next to mine was Are You My Mother, the children's book about a baby bird. And I'm like, how could they be offended by a baby bird looking for its mommy? And I realized they had confused it with Are You My Mother, a comic drama, which is a graphic novel for adults, because they don't read past the first three words of the title. And I went up and gave the speech, and then one of the politicians is like, "Okay, I realize they made a mistake, but they also told me that let's talk about it. The Teen's Guide to Sex was in the children's section, and I can't have that. I gotta watch these libraries." And I'm like, "I don't think that's true. Did you check?" And she's like, "Well, there's no way to check." I'm like, "The library's right there. We can go ask them." So I walked in the library and I found out she had confused Let's Talk About It, the Teen's Guide to Sex and Sexuality with Let's Talk About It, the Sesame Street Guide to Conflict Resolution. And I'm like, at least read the fourth word of the title. If you're not going to read the book, read the whole cover. But yeah, like once you go up and start telling people that, then they realize like, oh, why am I bowing to these complete idiots? Like I'm giving up my own voice because I'm afraid of these people judging me, and they're morons.
Yeah. That's so crazy, man. That's so crazy. I guess it's politicians clinging to their jobs. They're afraid if somebody makes a stink, then they'll get ousted or
Yeah.
something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't pressure I have to live under, so I can't pretend like I understand what that's like. But also, I've gotten to the point in my life where I just don't give a crap. I know
Yeah.
what's right. I know in my heart what is correct, and doing stuff like arbitrarily banning a Sesame Street book because of
Yeah.
a typo it's like
Yeah.
that's not cool, man.
I think, yeah, I mean, being a politician is a stressful job with a lot of pressure. One thing you can do is not be a politician if you don't like having that kind of pressure. That's one option.
Very well. Yeah, it's like and yeah, I don't want to go fully political right here at this end, but there are, like you mentioned, stuff happening in Minnesota, and if you take a job where you have to cover your face with a mask, you obviously feel like what you're doing probably isn't right or correct. So should you be taking that job?
Yeah, that's like I imagine, like I think about like the jobs that I've turned down for like the most minuscule reasons, like as a cartoonist, like um that like could have changed my life at that moment when I was struggling with money. And like I remember at one point being like offered a job drawing like US military propaganda to like hand out in Afghanistan, like as a comic about how great the US military was. And I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. uh and just like things with like a slight political bent that like I agree with 90% of this, but like I don't necessarily want to put my name on everything in this book, and they're offering me a lot of money to do it, but like I'll I'll just say no. And then in every one of those cases, something much better came along that like I'm passionate about right
Mm.
after. Um Again, not being afraid of making mistakes, like even if you purposely like make a choice that seems like a mistake, um don't be afraid, because like something good can come from it. And if I had taken these jobs that I was not sure about, or opposed to, I couldn't have taken those opportunities that changed my life. um See, I can't imagine taking a job that literally just like involves, hey, let's be a historical monster. They pay a lot.
Yeah, yeah. But let's try and hide it. Let's not let anybody know. Yeah, it's kind of.
Yeah, how can I find the job that's going to make me most likely like the villain of a future Indiana Jones movie? Like what's the next generation going to be, like the shorthand of uh like we need a villain. Let's just put him in a nice uniform.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard this comedian making a joke about the Blue Angels, how cool they are, like watching them fly close in formation. And he got to like actually go up with them and do all this stuff. And he's like, that's awesome. But if you're like in, say, Afghanistan, it's probably the scariest thing you've ever seen in your life. You know what I mean? And I was
Mhm.
thinking, seeing like these floods of people like pour out of a van wearing masks, that's that same kind of fear. You know what I mean? Like we're doing that to our own people, like our own citizens. We're instilling fear in them, and I just like I can't fathom how that's good or right, or there's like this thing I heard that you should put your neighbor before everything else. You know what I mean? Like they were talking about religion, right? Like if my religion gives me an edict that comes between me and my neighbor, not being kind to my neighbor, that's wrong, right? And I feel like it's very much the same with the government. If the government's trying to tell me to do something and it comes between me and the health and happiness of my neighbor, that's probably a bad thing. And what we're doing is we're hurting our neighbors right now. And I just don't understand why that seems okay to anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like one of the things that traveling does for you is like when you are in so many experiences and meet so many people that you share so little with, and then you realize how much you actually do share despite having completely different like just that moment of talked earlier about the meeting the refugees from Tibet, and like the only thing that we have in common is that like they've heard of Eminem. And I like they've actually listened to him. I'm from Detroit. I've heard Eminem songs. I've never like sat down and listened to an album. I saw his movie, but I'm like, we have that connection. Like they were so excited to meet someone from the place that Eminem came from, and I'm like, I don't I don't know Eminem very well, but like when you make that connection with someone, um, whether it's through like goofy pop culture, whether it's through like sharing food, whether it's through a conversation about family, like you realize that like you know all these differences mean nothing. We're all people. We can all connect. We all have the same feelings. We all have the same fears. And, there's always someone trying to get into power by seeing like, one of the things when I do like activism about banned books, it's like there are so many people that they've run out of races, genders, and sexualities that they're allowed to hate publicly. So they're like, I don't know who's left. Librarians? I guess I hate librarians now. Like, that's not a protected class, is it? I hate teachers, and they'll just spend their life hating teachers and librarians.
Mm.
And it's like, y'all just really, really want someone to hate, don't you?
Mm.
Like, it's as arbitrary as a skin color or a sexuality or a gender. It's just, they just really need someone to be better than, so they can feel like they're better than someone, because they hate themselves so much they need to redirect it somewhere else.
Mm. Well, I think something you touched on there is important for me to remember, that there's so much that everybody on this planet shares in common. There's so much more that we share in common than we differ in. No matter what it happens to be, whether it's our religious beliefs, our skin colors, the way we speak, we all care for our neighbors. We all care for the ones we love. We care for our children. We care for our family. Care for our friends. Like there's so much commonality there that it's getting harder and harder for me to have patience with people that can't see the kindness in everybody, the humanity in everybody around us, and they allow themselves to slowly slide into, the pot, like the frog, right, being boiled. They just slowly let themselves do that, and it's like it's beyond me. But I truly love that there's people like you that are fighting the good fight, and doing it in unconventional ways. You're doing it through graphic novels and comics, and honestly, it seems like you're doing it through kindness. And man, I love that.
Well, I just like when I look at the way people have welcomed me, and all, like I've I have not scratched the surface of the dumb things I've done in traveling the world, but like in all those cases, people were so warm and welcoming and helpful. And just like the way I see the people that come from other countries, the way they're treated where I come from and the way I was treated are completely different. I mean, like times that like one of those cross India train trips where I like, my legs start to hurt and like I'm like, I need to get off this train. I'm just going to get off a different station. I'm not too far from my destination. And I get off and I realize like, oh wait, I looked at the map wrong. I am like days away from my destination and I'm in the middle of nowhere and the next train comes tomorrow and there is nothing around me but desert. So I just start walking and like this little like village in the middle of nowhere that has like 40 people that live there and have probably never seen an American in their lives, like see me walking and they all run out and they're like, hey, who are you? What are you doing here? Like, come on in. And they invite me in and they make me a meal. They make me tea and they figure out, like, we don't speak the same language, but we figure out how to communicate. And they ask me where I'm going. And someone's like, my grandpa has a truck. He'll drive you. And like a bunch of people come with their grandpa because they want to hang out and talk more. And it like that mistake ended up being like the most amazing experience because people are warm and welcoming and want to connect. And I wish everyone were like that.
Yeah.
I've been lucky to meet a lot of people like that, and I try to bring the same thing through the work that I make. Whether I'm making a comic, whether I'm telling a story on stage, whatever I do, I try to show people my excitement for the world, my excitement for the people in it, my fascination with learning about this history, these cultures, these people, and work with people to help tell their stories. Try and tell my own stories and just try and share the experiences I have because they've been amazing and I want people to appreciate the world as much as I do.
I dig it. Such a good note to close out on, man. Well, I'll tell you what, I appreciate your time. It was an absolute gift and it was a pleasure talking to you. Is there anything you'd like people to see? Like, you got anything coming up? You want people to hit your socials, your website? Like how would you have people interact?
Yeah, if you go to ryanestrada.com, everything you'll need is right there, whether it's social media or stuff. But there's information in all my books. The Banned Book Club series I mentioned, it's Banned Book Club, No Rules Tonight, and Good Old Fashioned Korean Spirit, that are stories I told with my wife about her experiences being hunted down by the cops. My Student Ambassador series is like fictional kids' adventure stories about like what I wish Tintin had been when I was a kid, of like inspired by my own adventures, but like make them comedy mysteries that like show this enthusiasm for the world that I have and try and share it. And then there's just thousands and thousands of pages of free comics you can read right on the website because I'm a terrible businessman and you can just read those instead of buying anything. Everything's right there. I hope you check it out, and I hope you get out, have some adventures, try new things, make mistakes, meet some people, get into some trouble.
Dig it, man. Let me hit stop on all this stuff.